Yasvarastasnu Jalisnu Gumraha. Adya, first Avatara, incarnation, Purusha, Karanarvashayai Vishnu, Parasya, of the Lord, Kala, time, so Bhava, space, Sat, result, Asat, cause, Mana, mind, Cha, also, Dravyam, elements, Vikara, material ego, Guna, modes of nature, Indriyani, senses, Virat, to complete the whole body, Swarat, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, Stasnu, immovable, Charishnu, movable, Bhumna, of the Supreme Lord. Translation: Karana Varshai Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause and effects, mind, the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. Please repeat, Karanakashayi Vishnu. This is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And he is the master of eternal time. Space, cause and effects, mind, the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. Purport that the material creation is not permanent has been discussed many times herein before. The material creation is but a temporary exhibition of the material energy of the Almighty God. This material manifestation is necessary to give a chance to the conditioned souls who are unwilling to associate with the Lord in the relationship of loving transcendental service. Such unwilling conditioned souls are not allowed to enter into the liberated life of spiritual existence because at heart they are not willing to serve. Instead, they want to enjoy themselves as imitation gods. The living entities are constitutionally eternal servitors of the Lord, but some of them, because of misusing their independence, do not wish to serve. Therefore, they are allowed to enjoy the material nature, which is called Maya, or illusion. It is called illusion because the living beings under the clutches of Maya are not factually enjoyers, although they think that they are being illusioned by Maya. Such illusioned living entities are given a chance at intervals to rectify their perverted mentality of becoming false masters of the material nature, and there are imparted lessons from the Vedas about their eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Vedaischa sarvaya aham eva vidya. So the temporary creation of the material manifestation is an exhibition of the material energy of the Lord, and to manage the whole show, the Supreme Lord incarnates himself as Karanavashayi Vishnu, just as a magistrate is deputed by the government to manage affairs temporarily. This Karanadakashayi Vishnu causes the manifestation of material creation by looking over his material energy, Sai Akshata. In the first volume of this book, we have already discussed to some extent the explanation of the verse Jagrihe Paurusham Rupam. The duration of the illusory play of material creation is called a kalpa. And we have already discussed the creations taking place in kalpa after kalpa. By his incarnation and potential activities, the complete ingredients of creation, namely time, space, cause, result, mind, the gross and subtle elements, and their interactional modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and then the senses and their reservoir source, the gigantic universal form as the second incarnation, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and all living beings, both moving and standing, which come out of the second incarnation, all become manifested. Can you please repeat that sentence? Ultimately, all these creative elements and the creation itself are but potential manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is independent of the control of the Supreme Being. This first incarnation of the material creation, namely Karanakshaya Vishnu, is the plenary part of the original personality of Godhead Shri Krishna, described in Brahma Samhita as follows: Yashaika nivasita kalam atabalambya jivanti loma vilaja jagat andanatai Vishnur mahansa iha yasya kala vishesho govindam adi purusham tamaham pajamin. All the innumerable universes are maintained only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu or Karanavarashaya Vishnu, who is only a plenary part of Govinda, the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Om Agyananti Milandasya Gyanan Gyanan Salakaya Chaksur Meditam Jina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Karanavashaya Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause and effects, mind and the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. So, we are at the end of the Purusha Shukta confirmed. The Purusha Shukta is a prayer who comes from the Rig Veda originally. It comprises of 24 verses, and it is utilized for deity worship and homa, the fire sacrifices, in order to glorify what is described as the cosmic being. The interesting part about the Purusha Shukta is that it does not refer to any particular being, it refers to the cosmic being without giving it a definition. And the Purusha Shukta is in the Rig Veda, in the Sama Veda, in the Atharva Veda. It's even in Mahabharata. And it's used for various functions to glorify that Supreme Person. And the glorification is based on the 8th and 9th verse of the Purusha Shukta, which states that the Supreme Cosmic Being is offering himself as the element of sacrifice. So whenever you have a yagya or an offering, you take some elements from somewhere and you offer it to someone else. As the Purusha Shukta explains that actually you're taking the elements from the Supreme, from the person itself, from the Brahman, it's called, the cosmic being. You're taking this element from, like the demigods and the devas, they take from him and offer that. And therefore by that they create the whole universe. So there are the explanation in the Bhagavatam about the Sharga and Visharga. The Sharga is the original creation where actually the cosmic being provides all the ingredients, and then the Visharga is when Lord Brahma, the engineer of the universe, picks up all the ingredients and creates all the bodies, everything that is listed here. The modes of nature, the senses, the universal form, the law, everything is created there in a second creation. And Purusha Shukta says that you take it directly from the cosmic being. So this description here is as an answer to Parikshit Maharaj's question in the Bhagavatam in the first canto. And his question was, what should one do at the time of death? It's not a question that we hear every day. People don't ask, I'm going to die, what should I do? But Parikshit Maharaj has this intelligence to ask this question, what should I do at the time of death? And of course, Shukadeva Goswami will answer this question. And In summary, he answers this question by saying, you should become fearless. This is what you should do at the time of death. No universities or school or any kind of education nowadays teaches that you should become fearless at the time of death. So Sukadeva Goswami says there are two ways to, actually he says there is one way to become fearless, and the way to become fearless is to remember Krishna. Remember the personality of God at the time of death. And he says this is done in two ways. He says first you have to focus your mind, which is one thing I found very difficult to do now because I got a headache. Sorry about that. You have to focus the mind, and in order to focus the mind, you have to purify the mind. That is Sukadeva Goswami's two answers to how to become fearless. So how to focus the mind and how to purify the mind. So he says in order to purify the mind, you cannot focus the mind, he goes on saying, unless you have the mind purified. So to purify the mind, Sukadeva Goswami says the best way to do it is to keep the children quiet and to hear about Krishna. That is the main, to hear about Krishna is the main one actually, not so much the other one. And he says you have to hear about Krishna. So here Sukadeva Goswami is giving a series of ways to hear about Krishna. And this particular one here is starting to describe the creation, how Krishna expands and how the whole creation takes place. This is something that you can never hear from any other scriptures. And the Bhagavatam is special because it actually confirms what's in the Rig Veda. This is why it's called the Purusha Sukta confirmed. Because although it talks about the cosmic being, and the reason for that is because Parikshit Maharaj asked the proper question. Parikshit Maharaj asked why. The right question to ask is why, not how. Have you noticed how the scientists, they're always trying to ask how. And people that are in trouble, they ask how. They never ask why. The scientists, they ask how can I go to the other planet? How can I live longer? How can I enjoy more? How can I do this and that? But never ask why. Like Prabhupada often gives that example of the Goswamis, especially Sanatan and Rupa Goswami, who are highly educated. They speak Persian, they speak Sanskrit. They earn so much money that they have gold. They're well-to-do in every shape or form, physically, mentally, spiritually. And Sanatan Goswami asked the question. He says, why am I suffering? He goes to his spiritual master and says, why am I suffering? Now this is intelligence. But most people, they ask how. How can I get rid of this suffering? How can I get a new car? How can I get a new job? How can I go overseas? Get an exemption. So they ask how. So therefore, Parikshit Maharaj was convinced of the answer given by Sukadeva Goswami because he asked the right question. And the right question, Prabhupada goes on here describing how the whole material world takes place, and actually the living entities, they come here in the first place because they don't want to serve. But nobody cares about this. Everybody's trying to work out how we can do in this material world, how we can adjust things to make it better. But nobody says, why am I here in the first place? This is a place of birth, death, old age and disease, which is very unpleasant. But they say, how can we live longer? And how can we, get some maybe facial adjustment or something so we look younger? And how can we avoid disease? Vaccination. I don't know. So they ask how. So therefore, you see, when the sages were sitting there at Naimisharanya and they were listening to Sutta Goswami, they didn't really know how to ask the questions. Because a lot of them were like Brahma Jyoti, how do I get liberated, How can I enjoy and I get liberation? So therefore they brought in Parikshit Maharaj, and he knew as to how to ask the question. And he said, why I'm going to die? What am I doing here? So it's a bit like once you ask the question why, then all the hows are taken care of. Like for example, if you know why you bought a shovel, well, the answer is not that you're going to use it as a toothpick, because the shovel has a particular purpose. So similarly, if we ask the question, why do I have this human form? Then the answer is that this human form has a particular purpose. And the purpose is to actually conquer the cycle of birth and death. And therefore, in the bygone ages, this is how people used to greet themselves. They didn't say, "Good day, mate. How's it going today?" They used to say, "And how are your endeavors to conquer the cycle of birth and death going?" So they cut out the middle bit, and I was just saying, "How's it going?" But actually, how are your endeavors to conquer over the cycle of birth and death? Because the human form is actually meant for that purpose only, to inquire, why am I stuck here? And once you know and you read the instructions, then all the hows come through. So here, Shukadeva Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj, through Brahma, on the reason why we're stuck in the material world. And he tells him, once you understand this reason, and once you hear about this, then you will become fearless. And once you become fearless, and he says, how you become fearless is because you hear about Krishna and you serve, because hearing about Krishna is serving Krishna. Why is that? Why is it by serving Krishna I become fearless? Because Krishna is complete. And if I come in contact, if I serve the complete, I myself become complete. And once I'm complete, I'm happy. The problem is that we're not complete. We're like a finger or a leaf detached from the tree. If you detach your finger from the hand, you can't quite call it complete. Although the finger is still whole there, it's got the nails, you can polish the nail, do all kind of stuff. But because it's detached from the hand, it's useless. But once it's attached to the hand, then it has a purpose, and the purpose is to take the food and put it in there, and it goes down to the tummy, and then it nourishes everything. And then the finger is functional. And if we are not attached, if we don't read the instructions properly what the finger is for, then we might just chop it. And when we do that, we become dysfunctional. We become incomplete. So the idea is to be attached to the complete. How do you become attached to the complete? You serve the complete and you hear about the complete, which is Krishna. Then ourselves will become complete. And once we become complete, we become happy. So this is what Sukadeva Goswami is explaining here. Any questions or comments? Give him the complete microphone.
I'm just wondering about this concept of what you're speaking about, asking why rather than how.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, what is the tangible difference between that, why, asking why?
Yeah. Well, when you ask how, you're trying to solve your own problems here and you're trying to make life comfortable. Like for example, if you buy a Maserati and you go in a Western garden and pick up potatoes with it, and then it just doesn't work, and you say, how can I make it work? How can I make this, why isn't my Maserati really harvesting potatoes properly? You ask how, and you keep looking how. But when you ask why you bought why you've got the Maserati in the first place, then immediately in the instruction he will say, do not pick potatoes with it. So when you ask why, you get the answer which defines the purpose of utilization. Why am I here? Why have I got this body? So then as soon as you ask why have I got this body, then you know how the body should function. You know how much you should eat, what time you should get up, what you should be doing throughout most of your day with that body, because you understand the purpose of the body. In order to understand the purpose of anything, you gotta ask why is that there? What is this for? And then the how is that when you get the thing, but you're not sure what it's for, so it's not working. So when it's not working, you ask, well, how is it not working? How do you make it work? And then they have all these solutions. You make life longer, you go to another planet, you eat more, you go onto this diet, you do this, you do that, these are the hows. Once you understand why you have something, then everything falls into place naturally. And the problem is that we don't know why we have this in the first place, or what it's for. So yeah, does that make sense? If it doesn't, you can tell me.
And then, so it's specifically in reference to why we have the human form of life too. That's the ultimate question. Why do we exist in this form? What do we do about it?
Yeah, well then everything falls into place naturally. Like when you buy anything and you have the instructions, then you know how to use it, naturally, because you bought it for that purpose. So then you're not trying to screw out some kind of a way to use it, in a different way that's supposed to be. Like enjoying it, for example.
You mentioned about the reason why we're in the material world is because we don't want to serve. So we, as aspiring devotees, there's many devotees all on different levels and serving at different capacities. And I was remembering in one class where Prabhu was giving, I was watching it on YouTube, one devotee asked that he was feeling despondent. He was an adult. He was saying, I see all these children, and it's so inspiring to see how even the very young children, they're taking the process of bhakti very, they're really taking it up. And he says, I joined when I was like in my 30s.
Right.
And Vaisheshika Prabhu was very encouraging. He said that whatever your life situation is, whatever circumstances you are in, if you make the endeavor to serve Krishna, then when the time comes, Krishna will arrange everything. So in whatever situation we are in, we take advantage of it, because I was reflecting on that, because sometimes I've heard some devotees say, oh, you devotees are so lucky at the temple, you are enjoying. But
we are, aren't we?
Like whatever circumstances there are, service is always there, whether one is in lockdown, whether one is living at the temple or living outside. Yeah, and it's the mood and the consciousness, because even when, I remember there was a time devotees were saying, give the devotees who are in the congregation a chance to come for Mangala Aarti. And then no one turned up in the lockdown. The same, I'm not saying no one, but the same devotees who come, even if they live outside and inside, are coming. So it's not about comparing, oh, you are enjoying. That kind of something that I feel is it's not a right mood.
You're saying it's about wanting to serve.
Service is there for everyone, and comparing, like that devotee was saying, oh, the children are taking it up, they're fully practicing. It's not about comparing, it's the consciousness, it's the quality of service, because service is there for everyone. Reading, chanting, hearing, even home deity worship, whatever. So just that point.
Yeah, if you know that you're here to serve, then it'll be easy. It's everywhere. If you don't know that, then you will be finding other solutions to try and make your life joyful. Good point. Anything else? Jai Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.